Hey everyone, today we're going to dive deep into one of the biggest questions there is. What makes us tick? We're going to explore some of the very first maps ever drawn of the human mind to figure out what's really going on inside our heads.
So let's just start right there. I mean, seriously, what makes you, you? We all have this incredibly complex inner world, right? Full of dreams, fears, and secret desires. But how does it all work? What's the hidden operating system running the show?
To even begin to answer that, you got to go back to one person, Sigmund Freud. He was a true pioneer. He was the first to really suggest that our personality isn't just one single thing, but more like a constant, raging battlefield between different parts of ourselves.
All right, first up on this battlefield is the id. Just think of the id as the impulsive little toddler that lives inside your head. It's the part of you that's been there since day one, and it runs on one thing and one thing only, the pleasure principle. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now. You know, a baby screaming its head off for milk at 3 a.m., that is the id in its purest, most powerful form.
But, we can't just go through life screaming and grabbing whatever we want. And that's exactly where the ego comes in. This part of you starts to show up around age 2 or 3, and it's the realistic adult in the room. The ego gets how the real world works. It operates on the reality principle, figuring out how to get the id what it wants, but in a way that's, socially acceptable and won't get you into a ton of trouble.
And rounding out this trio, we have the superego. This is your inner moral compass, your conscience. It's the part of you that's absorbed all the rules, values, and shoulds from your parents and from society. The superego is the voice that makes you feel proud when you do the right thing, and it's also the voice that floods you with guilt when you mess up. And, as you can imagine, it is almost always fighting with the impulse of it.
Okay, this is where it all clicks. Imagine you see the most amazing slice of cake. Your id is screaming, I need that, eat it right now. But then your superego chimes in, don't you dare, that's greedy, it's unhealthy. So what happens? Your ego, the great negotiator, steps in and finds a compromise. Okay, calm down everyone. We'll have one small piece after we finish our dinner. That little internal conversation, according to Freud, that's your personality in action, happening all day, every day.
So you might be wondering, how on earth does the ego manage all this chaos? Well, it's got this secret toolkit of what are called defense mechanisms. These are unconscious little tricks it uses to protect you from anxiety. Things like repression, where you just push a really painful thought so far down you forget it's there. Or denial, where you flat out refuse to believe something painful is true. Or even projection, which is when you take a feeling you don't like about yourself and accuse someone else of having it. They're like mental shields, really.
But here's the thing. Freud's map, with its heavy focus on sex and aggression, was revolutionary, but it definitely wasn't the final word. In fact, some of his own followers, people in his inner circle, started to look at his ideas and say, hey, wait a minute, that can't be the whole story. And that disagreement, it completely changed the game. You can really see the massive shift in thinking right here. Freud was all about looking inward and backward, at our unconscious drives and our past experiences. But the people who came after him, the neo-Freudians, they started to look outward and forward. They argued that, hey, maybe our social lives, our conscious goals for the future, and our desire to just grow as people are just as important, if not more so. And this wasn't just a small tweak. This led to a huge explosion of brand new theories. It was like Freud drew the first rough sketch of the world. And now all these other explorers were coming in and adding entire new continents to the map of the human personality. So let's look at one of those explorers, Alfred Adler. He had a completely different idea about what drives us. He said it's not pleasure. The main thing that shapes our personality is this lifelong struggle to overcome the fact that we all start out as small, weak, and totally dependent children. Everything we do, he argued, is part of this striving for superiority, this drive to become competent and capable. But what happens if you get stuck in that feeling? If you can't quite overcome that initial sense of being small? Well, Adler had a famous name for that, the inferiority complex. It's that nagging, deep-down belief that you're just not as good as everyone else, a feeling that can really stop you from reaching your true potential. Then you have Carl Jung, and man, he took things in a totally different, almost mystical direction. He agreed with Freud that we have an unconscious mind, but he believed that underneath our personal one, there was something way deeper, way older, something we all share. He called it the collective unconscious. It's this wild idea that we're all born with a kind of psychic inheritance. It's a shared pool of memories and symbols that connect us to all of humanity across all of time. This is where those universal patterns, what he called archetypes, like the hero, the wise old man, or the shadow, come from. It's why you see the same basic stories and characters in myths and religions all over the world. It's because Jung said they're already inside all of us.
Now, while Jung was exploring ancient myths, Karen Horney was like, let's bring this back down to earth. Let's talk about our childhoods. She argued that the real source of our deepest anxieties isn't some internal conflict. It all comes down to our earliest relationships and whether or not we felt safe, loved, and valued as kids.
And this led to her most important idea: basic anxiety. This isn't just everyday worry. It's a really profound feeling of being small, helpless, and alone in a world that feels hostile and intimidating. Horney believed this feeling is born when a child's need for love and security isn't met, and that anxiety becomes the engine that drives us for the rest of our lives, pushing us to find ways to cope and feel safe.
So, okay, we've got Freud's inner war, Adler's climb to the top, Jung's dive into our shared past, and Horney's search for safety. These are fascinating ideas, but some of them are over 100 years old. Why are they still so important? Why are we still talking about them?
Because here's the real takeaway. It's not about picking which theory is right and which is wrong. You should think of them as a rich, powerful toolkit. Each one gives us a completely different lens for looking at ourselves and other people, a different language for trying to describe the incredibly messy, complicated, and beautiful experience of being human. And so, I want to leave you with a question to think about. As you reflect on your own life, your drives, your fears, your biggest goals, which of these stories feels most like your story? Is your life an endless negotiation, a constant climb, a journey into a shared myth, or is it a search for a safe place in the world? The map to understanding yourself might just be in one of these theories.